one of the massive elites, Jamie Dimon, is saying that the governments may have to seize your home and seize your property to fight climate change. Just when you thought you saw it all, you're going to see something else. Let's jump right into the article of today because you got to read it to believe it. All right. So they're saying JPMorgan, so one of the largest banks in the United States, the CEO is suggesting governments seize private property to quicken climate initiatives. So in a letter to his shareholders, Dimon wrote that permitting reforms are desperately needed to allow investment to be done in any kind of timely way. We may need even to invoke eminent domain. So eminent domain is something that is kind of complicated. It just means the government coming and seizing some of your private property. So in an annual letter to his shareholders, JPMorgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon suggested that the US government and climate conscious corporations may have to seize citizens' private property to enact climate initiatives while there is still time to stave off climate disasters. Now, we have to agree with him. I agree with him. So some people are climate deniers. I am not one of those. I mean, when I grew up, I live in Canada. So where I grew up, I used to wake up in the morning and my car, the roof of the car was under snow. I could not see my car. Completely under snow, had to dig it all the way out. I know, haha, Canada has snow, I get it. But I mean, there was that much snow. Today, back in the spring, we still have no snow. I barely had snow all year now. So I have seen this. So anyone, I think, who says that climate change hasn't happened, I think is joking themselves. But that's just me. This is not right or left. But we have to say that it is here and we need stuff. It's just the stuff that we have right now doesn't really work. We need much better technology to get in it, but I don't really think that we should be seizing people's property. Now, Dimon declared Tuesday that governments, businesses, and non-governmental organizations need to invoke eminent domain in order to get adequate investments fast enough for the grid, solar, wind, and pipeline initiatives. So it kind of sounds counterintuitive, right? Pipelines at the same time as working on solar, right? But, he needs the money. Jamie Dimon is a very, very, very powerful global elite. Eminent domain is a legal term that describes the government using its power to expropriate private property for public use, provided the government provides private owners proper compensation. We have to take that into key. So the government can seize your property if they give you compensation for it. This happens in real estate all the time. Say that a government wants to build a new highway and there's all these homes in the way. The government just comes in, takes everybody's home, you got to move out, and they're going to give you some money for the property. The key here is who decides what that property is worth, because almost always the homeowner thinks it's worth more than what the government is going to pay them. So let's jump into that, you guys, because I think this is interesting myself. Did this ever happen before in history? It happens all the time. But there is one case in particular I would like to point your eye to. This is Executive Order 6102, otherwise known as the seizing of gold in the United States. Executive Order 6102 is an executive order signed in 1933 by Franklin D. Roosevelt, forbidding the hoarding of gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates within the United States. Funny that they say hoarding. I like right in the wording, they're like, it's all your fault for seizing it, right? In the 30s, I understand there was a depression, but it's not like, oh, the government did this or not. No, your fault because you held on to the gold. I don't think so, guys. That's a little bit much. So the limitation on gold ownership in the United States was repealed by Gerald Ford, and he did this in 1974. Are you guys paying attention to that? That is 41 years. For 41 years, it was illegal to own any gold. Illegal. Well, how illegal? Because, if I get pulled over on the side of the street, what do I get? A fine? How illegal are we talking, guys? I mean, that's the important part. All right, let's check this out. Under the executive order of the president, this is the actual piece of paper that we had to look under before. All persons are required to deliver by a certain date, May 1st, 1933, all gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates. Remember, we have pictures online showing people lined up, hundreds of thousands of people to drop it off. Now, what if I didn't? It says at the bottom, criminal penalties for violating of the executive order, $10,000 fine or 10 years imprisonment or both. Sheesh. These guys were serious. Now, that is a lot back in 1933, $10,000. Now, the rationale, again, hoarding of gold, they said, was stalling economic growth and worsening the depression. Well, guys, seriously, it isn't external factors. It isn't that you're fighting world wars. It's not that you're spending a lot of money. No. It's because you had a gold coin. So you're telling me because I had a gold coin in my possession that it's my fault that I have this, and that's why the whole country is going down. I mean, that's a far stretch, even for then, right? But for sure now, I don't think that people would be able to buy that, let alone for 40 years being illegal to own any gold. Now, let's go on. Why did they do this? Please look at the effects. This is key. The Executive Order 6102 required that all persons deliver it, all but a small amount of gold coin, bullion, or gold certificates owned by them to the Federal Reserve in exchange for $20.67 per troy ounce. So you had to deliver your gold by a certain date for $20 an ounce. And if you didn't, you got a $10,000 fine or 10 years in prison. Please remember that it says here on Wikipedia, the equivalent is $209,000 in 2021 in today's money. So for me, David, I have 1 ounce of gold. Number one, if I did not bring this directly to them, this 1 ounce of gold, and give it to them for 20 bucks, I'm the problem why the country has failed. I don't know about that. That's a stretch, right? But number two, you would put me in jail for 10 years because I own this? I mean, people are walking around with cocaine in their pockets and who knows, guns in their pockets or shooting up people, and they're not going away for 10 years. But because I had a gold coin, I go away for 10 years. And they're going to fine you $209,000, almost a quarter mil for owning a coin. That's a massive punishment, right? This is serious. So this is what they did. $20 is how much they would give you. Okay. So they gave you $20 for the coin. And immediately after that, May 1st, what did they do? The Treasury afterward calculated the new valuation of gold at $35 an ounce. What? All right. Okay. So let me get this. They had millions, tens of millions of people dropping off their gold, giving them $20 for it and turning around and selling it for $35. So they screwed millions of people out of almost 50% of the value. That's how they did it. So imagine if a country was going to build a highway and they needed to seize all those homes where they were going to build a highway. And everyone said it's $1 million home and everyone agrees it's $1 million home, but the government says, nope, we're only giving you 500,000. Now, there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings on those guys, right? They've lost, but the whole other rest of the country, like the rest of the city, is going to be happy that the highway is built. So this is what happened in 1933. He moved in, Franklin D. Roosevelt, stole all the gold, 20 bucks an ounce, resold it for $35 an ounce. What did they do with all the gold? They built Fort Knox. We've all heard of Fort Knox in the United States. They poured all the gold into the bullion. Well, is it there or is it not there? You know, no one is ever allowed to go audit it, but that's where it is. But they used that money to build all the highway systems in the United States and build projects like Hoover Dam and backed up all the water, huge power grid, prevented flooding. So they did some good with it. And all of those jobs that it created did pull them out of the economy. So they did take the money from people. We cannot argue that, but they used the money for something good and help pull them out of the recession. But they did it with kind of like stolen money, can we say? Yeah, I would think so. Where we're at today, we have different agendas. And we live in a worldwide part where Canada and the United States want to play Robin Hood for the rest of the entire planet. And they kind of rob from their own people and give all their money away to the tune of hundreds of billions to all these other countries and other causes where we actually don't see it. So it's completely different these days. Now, this global climate is happening. But will electric cars fix it? No, I actually think we need a lot more tech. We need R&D. You know that thing that they came out with in England? It was a little tube and they put some electricity in it and got it out. It was like the size of a matchstick. But for the first time in history, we got more power out of it than what we put in. This is cool stuff. We need some really cool tech because battery cars are not going to do it. We need something to decarbonize the atmosphere. Yeah, we need to do a ton of different things. But right now, all the people that drive around in their cities in their electric cars, like in Toronto, don't realize that in the life of a car, it's going to burn production and burning gas like 36 tons or something like that of carbon dioxide. But to make a battery car will cost them like 40 tons just to make the car of carbon dioxide. So you're like, hang on a second, that's not helping the environment at all. But what we're doing is relocating the carbon dioxide. The problem too is how are we charging those cars? A lot of the cars are using electricity, using natural gas or coal to make the power plant to make the electricity. So we're burning it anyway. So there has to be some cool new stuff we need. We need some cool new tech. But should we be seizing government property? I'm not okay with what they did in the 1930s. I'm not okay with what they did at all. So Jamie Dimon, who is this guy? Well, this guy, he's the chief executive officer of JPMorgan Chase since 2005, long time. But before he was on the board of directors of the Federal Reserve Bank. The guy is worth 1.8 billion. That's a B. 1.8 billion, yo. That's a lot of dough. This guy worked for Goldman Sachs before. Of course he did. He went to Harvard Business School. This guy is like one of the elite. But when they talk about seizing property, my goodness, it doesn't feel good in your soul, does it? So when you go and look at a property, an article like this, where he's saying that eminent domain has to come up, it's kind of scary for me. Now, the letter, he says, touted the successes of the financial services company. Of course, they're always going to say that we are so good, right? And that we have a vision for the future. But according to the CEO, such drastic measures may be employed because the time is short. And I agree. The time is short and something has to happen. Now, we're seeing all over the world, people are saying stuff about that. They're throwing soup cans and paint on ancient paintings, gluing themselves to walls. Now, is this good behavior? Absolutely not. I mean, that's not the way to do it, but we have to be collaborative. In his letter to the shareholders, he was talking about being collaborative together. The CEO justified the potential government and corporate seizure of public property, saying that we simply are not getting adequate investments fast enough for the grid, solar, wind, and pipelines. I agree. It is not fast enough. Again, pipelines, it's a carbon bomb, but so is honestly solar. It uses a lot of silver, a lot of silicon, a lot of stuff. Now, here's a solution. Diverse stakeholders need to come together, seeking the best answers through engagement around our common interest. Okay, so first, diverse stakeholders need to come together. This is the mega problem that I am finding that is happening in all democracies of the world, and definitely all the G7s. We have an instance where we had the United States President Biden. He came up here and met Canadians for the first time. He met the leader of the opposition and he said, I am the leader of the opposition. And he's like, you're opposed to what? Biden said to him, and he goes, we believe that opposing them is our service to the country. So it has turned into not working together, not being collaborative, but being some giant debate club where whatever you say, you have to debate the other side. This sounds like high school debate club, does it not? So if one person says, I believe climate change is here, he goes, no, it's not. And they'll completely take the opposite side because that's their position, to be opposite. And we have seen, even if we read books from Ray Dalio, the division of the left and the right, where they're fanatic conservative or fanatic liberal on each side, and they cannot get together at all. So we're not talking about the presidents that we had in the 90s they would meet somewhere in the center, or the prime ministers in Canada that would kind of try to be close to the center. Now they've spread out to the other sides, and we can't get anybody to work together. It's very exhausting, you guys. So here we are, where some of the problems are as blatant as always, but people cannot get together. So I don't know what to do about it. But one thing I got to tell you is I'm happy that I have some gold. I'm happy that I have some silver. Remember, we were just talking about the solar panels. All solar panels have to have silver in them. It's a massively great conductive material. Of course, they say that gold is an archaic pet rock, they say, that does nothing, but this is your security anchor. Always, this will buy you the same number of loaves of bread as it did 2,000 years ago, 100 years ago, or today. It'll always buy you that. Whereas if you had a literal dollar, I was just talking today to my cousin that my grandfather made $5 a week, $5 a week, and he had 4 kids. Wife didn't work, had a car, $5 a week. So today, what would that do? If he saved this dollar for me all these years later, and he was alive when this dollar was printed in 1928, it wouldn't buy me anything today. But back then, it was an entire day's wage. So this is why it is so important for you to hang on to something, your security. But silver is the caveat to that, is because it is also an industrial metal that is used in the electric cars that they're doing, in all the solar panels and all the electronics. This is why I love silver. So you should have a little bit of it. Make sure that you're always storing it in a safe way, preferably out of the country. All right, you guys, I wish you the very, very best. I hope that you have a fantastic evening. Remember, next 2 years is going to dictate the next 20 years of your life. Thank you very much for the support, you guys. Have a great day.